The ice begins long before you see it. Before the horizon turns white. Before the wind sharpens. Before the cold reaches through layers of fabric and settles into bone. It begins in silence. A silence so complete that it feels unnatural. Then the world opens. An endless frozen expanse stretches beyond sight, swallowing mountains, burying valleys, erasing all sense of distance beneath a continent-sized sheet of ice older than human civilization itself. This is the Greenland Ice Sheet. Not the version most people imagine. Not the colorful villages along the coast. Not the tourist photographs. Not the brief glimpse from an airplane window. But the real Greenland. The interior. The vast white wilderness hidden beyond the edge of the world. A landscape so immense, so hostile, and so isolated that it feels less like a place on Earth, and more like another planet trapped in permanent winter. Nearly 80% of Greenland disappears beneath ice. An ocean of frozen water stretching across more than 1.7 million square kilometers. In some places, the ice rises over 3 kilometers thick. Ancient snowfall compressed layer upon layer for hundreds of thousands of years. Time itself buried beneath pressure. Standing here feels impossible. The surface appears motionless. Calm. Frozen. But it is moving. Always. Entire rivers of ice flow slowly toward the coast, grinding rock beneath them with unimaginable force. Mountains vanish beneath the weight. Valleys are reshaped. The earth bends under pressure so enormous that even the bedrock below sinks beneath the ice. This landscape is alive. Not with forests or grass or visible movement, but with deep geological motion. The wind arrives first. Long before storms become visible. It moves across the surface in uninterrupted waves, gathering speed over thousands of kilometers of open ice. There are no trees here to slow it. No hills. No barriers. Only exposure. The cold feels different in Greenland. Not sharp. Not sudden. Absolute. Breath freezes instantly in the air. Eyelashes crystallize with frost. Metal burns skin on contact. Even sound changes here, swallowed by snow and distance until the world feels strangely muted. Temperatures collapse far below freezing. And yet, this frozen wilderness holds enough ice to raise global sea levels by more than 7 meters if it ever completely melted. A sleeping giant frozen above the ocean. The scale becomes difficult to understand. Days pass crossing the interior without seeing a single tree. Without seeing another person. Without seeing anything except white horizon after white horizon stretching into infinity. Direction disappears here. Sky and ground blend together during storms until there is no visible separation between them. No shadows. No depth. No horizon. Only white. Explorers once called it the Great Inland Ice. Many never returned. Because Greenland does not forgive mistakes. Storms appear suddenly. Temperatures fall violently. Crevasses open without warning beneath snow bridges thin enough to collapse under a single step. The ice hides its dangers well. At first glance, the surface appears smooth. Almost peaceful. Then cracks begin to emerge. Massive fractures split through the ice sheet like wounds stretching for kilometers. Blue light glows from deep within them, revealing compressed ice so ancient and dense that it appears almost translucent. Some crevasses plunge hundreds of feet downward into darkness. Others widen into frozen canyons large enough to swallow buildings. The deeper you look, the stranger the ice becomes. Air bubbles trapped within it hold fragments of ancient atmospheres. Snowfall from forgotten centuries preserves beneath layers of pressure. Tiny records of volcanic eruptions, temperature shifts, and storms that passed long before modern civilization existed. The ice remembers everything. And everywhere across Greenland, it is changing. During summer, sunlight barely disappears. The sun circles endlessly above the horizon, casting long golden light across the frozen surface even at midnight. Time loses meaning beneath constant daylight. The body becomes confused. Sleep drifts apart. Hours blend together. And beneath the endless light, melting begins. Water forms on the surface in brilliant blue streams, carving pathways through the ice. Entire rivers appear where there should only be frozen silence. Then the water disappears. Not by evaporation, but by falling. Meltwater plunges into enormous vertical shafts called moulins, spiraling downward through the ice sheet into darkness. The sound is terrifying. Roaring water vanishing into the center of the glacier like the earth itself has opened. Some of these shafts extend all the way to the bedrock below. The surface of Greenland is not solid. It is layered, fractured, moving. And beneath it all, liquid water flows in hidden channels beneath kilometers of ice. The deeper you travel into Greenland, the more surreal the landscape becomes. Snow dunes stretch across the surface like frozen waves trapped in motion. Wind sculpts sharp ridges called sastrugi into the snow, creating patterns that resemble another world entirely. Nothing grows here. Nothing softens the terrain. Only ice. Only sky. Only distance. And then, suddenly, color. Against the endless white, a polar bear appears. Massive. Silent. Its fur moves with the wind as it crosses sea ice near the coast, searching for seals beneath frozen surfaces. One of the Arctic's greatest predators surviving within one of the harshest climates on Earth. The bear moves slowly. Carefully. Every step matters here. Because even predators struggle in this environment. The Arctic changes constantly. Sea ice forms and disappears with the seasons. Hunting grounds shift. Storms intensify. Glaciers retreat. Nothing in Greenland remains truly permanent. Not even the ice itself. Along the edges of the ice sheet, glaciers rise like frozen walls above dark Arctic waters. Towering cliffs of compressed blue ice crack under pressure, groaning with deep sounds that echo across the fjords. Then the collapse comes. Entire sections break away. Icebergs explode into the ocean with the force of collapsing buildings, sending waves across the freezing water. The sound arrives seconds later. A deep thunder rolling through the Arctic silence. This process has shaped Greenland for thousands of years. But now it moves faster. The glaciers retreat farther inland. Summer melt increases. Ancient ice disappears into the sea. The planet is changing here in real time. And nowhere is it more visible than Greenland. Yet despite its hostility, life still survives. Musk oxen move across frozen tundra beneath the edge of the ice sheet, thick fur protecting them from temperatures that would kill most mammals within minutes. Arctic foxes disappear into white landscapes so perfectly camouflaged they seem to vanish entirely. Narwhals move through dark coastal waters beneath floating sea ice, their long spiral tusks breaking the surface like creatures from mythology. Everything here feels ancient. As though evolution itself followed different rules in the Arctic. The sky changes constantly over Greenland. During winter, darkness consumes the landscape for months. The sun barely rises. Storm clouds merge with the horizon. The cold deepens. And then, light returns. Not sunlight. Something stranger. Green ribbons begin moving silently across the sky. The aurora borealis. Northern lights drift over the ice sheet in waves of glowing color, reflecting faintly across frozen surfaces below. It feels unreal. Like the atmosphere itself has come alive. Ancient people once believed these lights were spirits moving through the heavens. Standing beneath them, surrounded by silence and ice, it becomes easy to understand why. Because Greenland does not feel entirely connected to the modern world. It feels older. Primal. A reminder of what Earth looked like before roads, cities, and industry reshaped the planet. And yet, even here, humanity has arrived. Research stations stand isolated against the endless white, tiny structures surrounded by thousands of kilometers of frozen wilderness. Scientists drill deep into the ice sheet, extracting cores that reveal climate records stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Every layer tells a story. ash from volcanic eruptions, tiny traces of ancient droughts, shifts in atmospheric carbon. The ice preserves Earth's memory better than almost anywhere else on the planet. But those memories are becoming fragile. Because the Arctic warms faster than nearly anywhere else on Earth. The changes appear slowly at first. Then suddenly, meltwater rivers grow larger. Sea ice forms later. Storms carry more heat. Entire glaciers retreat kilometers inland within a single human lifetime. The frozen world begins to soften. And when ice disappears, darker surfaces beneath absorb more sunlight, accelerating the warming even further. A feedback loop unfolding across the top of the planet. But Greenland is not only ice. At the very edges of the ice sheet, exposed mountains emerge from the frozen wilderness like ancient islands. Dark rock contrasts violently against endless white. Some peaks rise through the ice completely isolated, surrounded by glaciers on every side. Nunataks. Mountain summits trapped above frozen oceans. Wind tears across these ridges with terrifying force. Snow spirals into the air like smoke. Visibility vanishes within seconds during blizzards. And still, life adapts. Tiny Arctic flowers bloom briefly during the short summer near exposed coastal regions. Migratory birds arrive from continents away, taking advantage of endless daylight before winter returns. Everything here exists within narrow windows. Short summers. Brief warmth. Temporary survival. Then the cold comes back. Always. The deeper winter settles across Greenland, the quieter the world becomes. Sea ice expands across the Arctic Ocean. Fjords freeze. Snow buries exposed rock. The landscape simplifies. White. Gray. Blue. Nothing else. But within that simplicity lies overwhelming scale. Some storms over Greenland become so powerful they generate their own systems of wind and pressure across the North Atlantic. Katabatic winds descend from the ice sheet with incredible speed, carrying dense freezing air toward the coast. The weather here does not simply affect Greenland. It affects oceans, atmospheres, climate systems across the planet. This frozen wilderness influences the world far beyond its borders. And yet most people will never truly see it. Because the real Greenland remains hidden behind distance, cold, and isolation. Not a destination. Not an attraction. A wilderness. One of the last truly immense wildernesses left on Earth. A place where nature still dominates completely. Where human presence feels temporary. Fragile. Small. Crossing the interior ice sheet reveals something difficult to describe. Not fear. Not loneliness. Perspective. Because in Greenland, human scale disappears. A single person standing on the ice becomes almost meaningless against the enormity surrounding them. There are no buildings for comparison. No roads. No signs of civilization. Only frozen distance stretching farther than the eye can follow. And somewhere beneath that frozen silence, the ice continues moving. Slowly. Relentlessly. Toward the sea. The paradox of Greenland is impossible to ignore. It feels eternal. But it is changing. The ice sheet appears timeless from above, yet every season reshapes it. Every storm alters its surface. Every summer melt changes its future. Even glaciers that survived thousands of years now retreat under warming temperatures. And still, Greenland remains breathtaking. Because this place reveals Earth stripped down to its most elemental forces. Cold. Wind. Ice. Time. Nothing unnecessary survives here. Only what can endure. And perhaps that is why Greenland feels so powerful. Not because it is beautiful. But because it feels indifferent. The ice does not care whether humans survive. The storms do not slow for explorers. The cold does not negotiate. Nature exists here in its purest form. Unsoftened. Uncontrolled. Untamed. At the northern edge of the island, sea ice merges with the frozen Arctic Ocean beneath pale sunlight that barely touches the horizon. Icebergs drift silently through dark water like moving mountains. Some are older than entire civilizations. Frozen fragments of glaciers beginning journeys that may last years before finally melting into the Atlantic Ocean. The Arctic sky glows faintly blue above them. Everything moves slowly. Almost imperceptibly. But movement never stops. That is the secret of Greenland. What appears frozen is actually in constant motion. Ice flows. Storms shift. Oceans rise. Glaciers crack. Snow falls. Meltwater races beneath the surface. The wilderness breathes beneath the cold. And perhaps nowhere else on Earth makes humanity feel smaller. Because Greenland reveals how temporary we truly are. Long before modern civilization existed, this ice sheet already covered the island. And long after humanity changes the planet, some part of Greenland may still remain frozen beneath Arctic skies. But not unchanged. Never unchanged. The wind grows louder again. Snow drifts across the surface in endless patterns. Far in the distance, a glacier cracks with a sound like thunder trapped beneath ice. The Arctic continues its ancient process. Slow. Violent. Beautiful. Indifferent. And standing here, surrounded by endless frozen silence, one truth becomes impossible to escape. Greenland is not merely a place. It is a force. A living archive of Earth's past. A warning about its future. And one of the last landscapes on the planet capable of making the modern world feel impossibly small. Because the real Greenland is not the version most people imagine. It is colder. Vaster. Stranger. More alive. A wilderness where the ice never truly rests. Where storms shape continents. Where silence becomes physical. And where the frozen heart of the Arctic continues moving beneath the surface of the world. Endlessly. Relentlessly. Slowly. Like time itself. And somewhere across that endless white horizon, beneath layers of ancient snow older than memory, the ice continues its journey toward the sea. Still moving. Still changing. Still alive. Even now. Again. And again. And again. The Arctic strips existence down to essentials. Perhaps that is why Greenland feels so emotionally powerful. It forces confrontation with scale. Not human scale. Planetary scale. Because this ice sheet is not simply frozen water. It is one of the largest active geological forces on Earth. Beneath the ice, the bedrock of Greenland lies buried under immense pressure. In some regions, the weight of the ice has depressed the land itself hundreds of meters below sea level. If the ice disappeared completely, parts of Greenland would slowly rise upward again over thousands of years, rebounding after ages spent beneath crushing weight. Even the continent bends beneath the ice. That pressure creates movement. Slow. Invisible. Constant. Glaciers grind stone into fine powder as they move toward the coast. Entire mountains are carved apart grain by grain beneath rivers of flowing ice. The landscape reshapes itself over centuries without human eyes ever witnessing the process. And hidden within the ice are darker secrets. Beneath parts of Greenland lie ancient subglacial lakes trapped under kilometers of frozen pressure. Liquid water sealed away in darkness for unimaginable stretches of time. Scientists believe some of these hidden environments may contain microbial life adapted to total isolation. Life surviving beneath the Arctic itself. The deeper researchers study Greenland, the stranger it becomes. Radar systems reveal buried valleys beneath the ice larger than entire mountain ranges. Ancient river systems remain hidden below frozen layers that formed long before recorded history. The ice conceals another world beneath it. A forgotten landscape locked away under snow and pressure. And yet the surface above remains breathtakingly empty. There are moments during Arctic storms when visibility collapses completely. The sky and ground merge into a single field of white. People lose all sense of orientation. Up and down become uncertain. Distance disappears. Without instruments, travelers can unknowingly walk in circles across the ice. This phenomenon is known as a whiteout. And within Greenland, it can become deadly within minutes. The storm wind screams across the surface carrying particles of snow sharp enough to sting exposed skin. Temperatures plunge. Tents strain against violent gusts. Outside, the frozen world vanishes. Only the sound of wind remains. Then, just as suddenly as the storm arrived, silence returns. The clouds break apart. Sunlight spills across the snow. And the entire ice sheet glows. Blue shadows stretch across frozen ridges. Light reflects from billions of ice crystals scattered across the surface. The landscape becomes almost blinding in its brightness. There are few places on Earth where light behaves this way. The Arctic sun never rises high above the horizon, especially during colder months. Instead, it moves sideways across the sky, casting long cinematic shadows across the wilderness. Everything feels sharper here. More exposed. More raw. Even the air seems cleaner. During clear nights near the edge of the ice sheet, stars appear with extraordinary intensity. The Milky Way cuts across the darkness above frozen mountains while sea ice glows faintly beneath moonlight. And somewhere in the distance, glaciers continue cracking apart. The Arctic is never truly silent. Ice expands. Contracts. Breaks. Moves. The sounds echo across the frozen landscape like distant thunder trapped beneath the earth. Near the western coast of Greenland, enormous glaciers meet the ocean directly. Some move so quickly that visible changes can occur within days. Walls of ancient ice rise above black water like frozen cathedrals. Blue light radiates from deep within them where compression has removed almost all trapped air. Then fractures begin. A sharp crack. A deep groan. And suddenly entire towers collapse into the sea. The resulting waves spread outward through floating icebergs while shattered fragments roll and spin through freezing water. This is calving. One of the most dramatic natural processes anywhere on Earth. And in Greenland, it happens constantly. The scale feels impossible. Some icebergs breaking away from Greenland glaciers are larger than cities. Floating mountains beginning slow journeys through Arctic currents toward distant oceans. Most will eventually melt. But some survive for years drifting across the North Atlantic. The Arctic Ocean itself transforms constantly around Greenland. Sea ice expands across enormous distances during winter, forming temporary frozen worlds above dark polar water. Then summer returns. The ice weakens. Breaks apart. Drifts. Melts. The boundaries between ocean and land begin to blur. And throughout it all, Greenland remains suspended between permanence and collapse. That tension defines the Arctic. Everything here feels ancient. Yet everything is changing. Even the wildlife adapts constantly. Polar bears swim farther searching for stable sea ice. Walruses crowd together on exposed coastlines as ice platforms disappear. Seabirds alter migration patterns following shifting temperatures and changing ocean currents. The Arctic ecosystem moves in response to the ice. And the ice itself moves in response to climate. Nothing remains isolated. Everything connects. Ocean temperatures influence glacier melt. Glacier melt influences sea level. Sea level influences coastlines around the world. A frozen wilderness at the top of the planet quietly reshapes global systems far beyond its borders. And still, most of Greenland remains profoundly untouched. There are valleys here where no roads exist. Mountains that may never feel human footsteps. Frozen regions visible only from satellites or aircraft. The interior preserves a kind of planetary solitude that has almost vanished elsewhere on Earth. Modern civilization feels distant here. Almost irrelevant. Phones lose signal. Machines freeze. Fuel thickens in the cold. Nature controls the rules completely. That reality changes people. Because Greenland forces humility. No amount of technology can fully tame the Arctic. No amount of preparation removes the danger. The wilderness remains stronger. And perhaps that is why the Greenland Ice Sheet feels so unforgettable. It represents something increasingly rare in the modern world. True scale. True isolation. True indifference. A place where humanity is not dominant. Only temporary. The farther north you travel, the stranger the light becomes. Sunsets linger for hours beneath pale Arctic skies. Clouds glow pink and violet over frozen oceans. Icebergs drift through golden reflections beneath endless twilight. Then winter deepens again. Darkness returns. And Greenland transforms into one of the coldest, quietest places on Earth. Temperatures collapse. Storms intensify. Sea ice expands farther into the Arctic Ocean. For months, some regions barely see sunlight. Yet even during this darkness, life continues. Beneath the ice-covered ocean, seals move through hidden breathing holes. Narwhals navigate freezing waters beneath drifting sea ice. Arctic wolves cross frozen tundra beneath moonlit skies. Survival here depends on adaptation beyond ordinary limits. Every creature in Greenland exists within conditions that would destroy most forms of life. And still they endure. Perhaps endurance is the defining spirit of the Arctic itself. Not comfort. Not abundance. Persistence. The ice persists. The cold persists. The storms persist. And despite every hardship, life persists too. That persistence stretches far beyond modern history. Long before nations existed, Greenland was frozen. Long before industry transformed the atmosphere, glaciers already moved across this landscape. The Arctic existed before humanity. And it will continue long after modern civilization changes beyond recognition. But the Greenland of the future may not resemble the Greenland of today. Scientists studying deep ice cores have discovered evidence of past climate shifts preserved inside frozen layers. Periods of warming. Periods of cooling. Volcanic winters. Ancient atmospheric transitions. The ice records Earth's history with astonishing precision. But it also reveals how sensitive frozen systems can become once temperatures begin changing. And nowhere is that warning more visible than here. Because Greenland stands at the center of one of the greatest environmental transformations unfolding on Earth. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. But steadily. Relentlessly. Like the glaciers themselves. The Arctic is warming. The ice is responding. And the world is watching. Yet beyond science, beyond climate, beyond data and measurements, Greenland still possesses something deeper. Mystery. Because no matter how much humanity studies this frozen wilderness, much of it remains unknowable. Storms still hide entire regions. Crevasses still open without warning. The ice still shifts beneath the surface in ways too vast to fully comprehend. Greenland resists complete understanding. And perhaps that is what makes it so mesmerizing. It reminds humanity that some parts of Earth still exist beyond comfort. Beyond certainty. Beyond control. A final wilderness. A frozen world still ruled by natural forces older than civilization itself. And somewhere tonight, beneath pale Arctic stars and drifting curtains of northern light, the Greenland Ice Sheet continues its slow ancient movement toward the sea. Ice flowing through darkness. Storms crossing the horizon. Glaciers breaking apart beneath moonlight. The Arctic breathing beneath the cold. Endlessly. Relentlessly. Without pause. Like time itself. And even now, far beyond the edge of the modern world, Greenland remains exactly what it has always been. Vast. Silent. Beautiful. Indifferent. Alive.